Liam was broke, and I used my family's connections to pressure him into being with me. Someone told me they were interested in dating me. Liam, you don't mind, right? He just chuckled, wouldn't have it any other way. I stood outside the door, my fingertips icy. 5 years later, when we met again, Liam was a hotshot businessman, a real titan of industry, and he was going toe-to-toe with me. Liam, what do I even owe you? 5 years, he said, his eyes dropping low. You owe me 5 years, and I'm gonna collect, little by little. I never thought I'd see Liam again. It was a networking dinner with some business partners. The VP mentioned I was the lead on the project. Liam gave me a look, a real smoldering once-over. Oh yeah? He said, a teasing note in his voice. What's your name? It was a deliberate jab, meant to make me squirm. Liam's success had put him way ahead of me in the corporate world. I just forced out, it's Sarah Jones, Mr. Miller. Liam didn't say a thing. Someone changed the subject, so I heard Sarah broke it off with her boyfriend before she went overseas. Why was that? I paused, forgot about it. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Liam, eyes cold as ice. He was taking a drag on his cigarette, letting his date light it for him. Then, just for a second, his lips quirked up into a smirk. He was all swagger. Everyone at the table was young-ish. Someone joked, drinking is boring. Why don't we hear Liam's story about how he dumped his last girlfriend? A few seconds of silence passed. Liam said quietly, it was just a fling, don't even remember her. He was staring right at me as he said it. My fingers clenched up automatically, and my throat felt like it was full of cotton. Then, his date stepped in. She was also my half-sister, Tiffany. Back in college, she said, dripping sarcasm, Sarah used some nasty tricks to get a guy who didn't want her. She's a selfish user, and I'm betting she's back in town for the same old drama. I had no desire to even acknowledge her, but she was clearly trying to get under my skin. I looked her straight in the face. And who are you? Some high-priced call girl? I don't think Dad knows about your side hustle. Tiffany's face went red. Everyone at the table was staring now. My colleagues knew my temper. One gave my arm a nudge, trying to tell me to cool it. I glanced over at Liam, who was as cool as a cucumber. He hadn't even flinched. He was just how I remembered him. Cold, almost heartless. I used to want to rip open his chest and see if his heart was actually made of stone. The dinner ended pretty early. On the way back from the restroom, I ran into Liam in the hallway. We brushed past each other, and in that same instant, he grabbed my wrist. It had been years, but the heat of his touch was like something out of the past. Sarah Jones, he said, his voice low and husky. I used to love the way he said my name. I loved the way he'd say it, hoarse and desperate, on a messy bed, pressed against me. Sarah Jones, beg me. That intense mix of passion and nonchalance got me going like nothing else. I replied, trying to keep it neutral. What's up? Liam didn't answer right away, then he said, Tiffany and I aren't a thing. Okay. After that, he just let go of my hand and walked away. I just stood there, thinking about how stupid I was. I couldn't fall for this again. I was a fool to think he had ever had feelings for me. I used to be naive, thinking that loving someone meant you had to own them. Now I knew better. The first time I met Liam, it was in a dive bar. He was a tall kid with sharp, chiseled features. But his eyes were like black ice. Liam. He was famous for being hot, and famous for being broke. He was working there as a bartender, and my friends were trying to force him to drink. Someone with that kind of pride wasn't gonna stand for that kind of disrespect. He was looking tough and mean. Liam grabbed the guy by his collar. I stepped in to smooth things over and keep it from getting out of hand. I'll never forget his face when he turned his head, the cold look he gave me. Drama over. My friend, Steve, was pissed. He wanted to go back and start something again. I stopped him. I wanna kill that jerk for looking at me like I'm nothing. I didn't say anything. I was thinking, I'm not letting that happen, because I was already hooked. After that, I started going to the bar, just to see him. Coincidentally, running into him everywhere, from classes to work. Finally, Liam lost his patience. Okay, what do you want? I know Steve is giving you a hard time at work. You go out with me, be my date, and I'll get it taken care of. Liam laughed. You rich kids are so entertaining. Be your date? What, holding hands and kissing? He looked at me, ice-cold sarcasm dripping from every word. Does that include sleeping with you? If I was initially drawn to him for his looks, that moment was when I saw his raw power. Liam agreed to be my boyfriend. He needed the money and he couldn't let us rich kids keep messing with his life. So, it began. He hated it, but he'd hold my hand. His pride bent until it broke. I thought that after 2 years, he would have developed at least a small soft spot for me. That was until I heard him say, while I was standing outside the club, that someone was interested in me. Liam, you don't mind, right? I heard him say softly, wouldn't have it any other way. In that moment, my fingers were freezing, a sour pain twisting in my gut. I realized that I was really, truly in love with him. I could see how much Liam resented me. The next day, I broke up with him. Why? He asked. Just a fling, I said. That's how it was. Tit for tat. Our youthful mistake needed to stay in the past. Until now, when the past decided to come back, haunting me like a bad dream. My friend and I own a media company called Aurora. We were at a crucial point in securing funding when I got the news. Liam had pulled out of the deal at the last minute. All the work the team had poured into the promotional materials was gone. I knew who to blame. I was not going to let him get away with it. In the afternoon, I was going to Liam's office for a meeting. I was surprised to see Steve there. His career hadn't been going great. Liam had been messing with him whenever he could. Seeing the guy who used to treat him like trash be so eager to please Liam was a great example of Liam's power. We talked about the good old days. He reached up and brushed some hair from my face. At that moment, Liam walked into the conference room. I was speechless. Are you kidding me? I asked Steve. I'm going crazy trying to get Liam jealous, and this is the only way I can do it. I smiled. He won't be jealous. Back in the day, when Liam saw me hanging out with Steve, his face would show something other than cold indifference. Then later that night, he would squeeze me in his arms and kiss me harder than ever. I thought it was jealousy. But I had been living in a fantasy. He didn't like me. Everything got really quiet and, just like I thought, Liam didn't even look my way. When the meeting was done, I got myself back together and went to his office. He didn't have his assistant around. We stood facing each other. I just went for it. This is personal and it's unprofessional. Is this the kind of person you are? Liam knew what I meant. You're reading too much into it, he said, bored. Meaning, you aren't important enough to be the cause of anything personal. Then tell me why you pulled out of the deal, so my company can learn from it, and maybe salvage the project. No reason, he said. Just didn't want to. His usual coldness, blatant indifference. We were both stubborn. We were too proud to ever show weakness. But things were different now. I needed money. Life was forcing me to put my pride aside. What do you want from me? Liam didn't say anything. He leaned against his desk, lit up a cigarette. The flame illuminated his jawline, a little bit of his bad boy vibe coming through. Through the smoke, he stared at me, his eyes unreadable. Spend the evening with me. It was just a plain sentence, but it had a sexual undercurrent that was hard to miss. I felt my hair tingle and anger rise in my chest. Liam smirked, just dinner. He was having fun watching me misunderstand him. I didn't think you were the type to joke around. And I didn't think you were the type to make it about you. He laughed. How does it feel to have your pride stomped on? Every word was deliberate. I understood what he was doing. Liam was getting his revenge. Now I understood how he could hold a grudge. I forced myself to remember, the only flaw in Liam's perfect life was when he was in college. The fact I had used my influence to force him to be with me for 2 years. The rumors of him being a gold digger. The humiliating way I treated him, expecting him to be at my beck and call. Now, I didn't know what to say. I took a breath and turned to leave. I took a few steps, stopped, and turned back around. I was going to fight him and win. Liam, you better come for me with everything you've got. Because I'm not giving up. Don't worry, he leaned closer, his eyes dark but his lips were curved in a smile. But a little warning, Sarah, if I see you laughing with Steve again, I'll destroy everything, Aurora, his business, I'll leave nothing behind. We stared at each other, a mix of familiarity and distance. It went on for a long time. It was easy to misunderstand him. But he was in control, and I wasn't one to be easily surprised. Thanks, I'll keep that in mind. Time doesn't wait for anyone. Liam had spent 3 years building his movie production company into an industry juggernaut. He was light years ahead of me. Every company wanted to be his partner. Including Aurora. Only now we were too far gone. I was a little sad, but I kept looking for new partnerships. It was my dad's birthday. He called, wanting me to come home. The word father used to be associated with warmth and love. After Mom passed away, Dad married his first love the next year. That's when I found out I had a half-sister. The man who had always been so loving to me was giving all that love to other people. I looked at that perfect little family. I hated my stepmom and my sister. So when I was in my freshman year of college, I left. I was alone with my mom's trust fund. After all these years, his voice was old, so I thought, maybe it's time I went home. Liam was there. Tiffany was acting like it was bring your boyfriend to dinner night. Liam saw me and didn't act surprised. He just gave me a small look and listened quietly to my dad talking. My dad used to be a big shot producer, but everything stopped after my mom died. He had even seen a psychic, and they told him that his wife's energy was what made him successful. After she died, nothing went right. Dad had been convinced that her soul was trapped in the house to protect him. It was a crazy story. He had a charm hanging up on the front wall. I ripped it down once. Now it was back up. I looked at that dumb piece of paper, my hands trembling. At dinner, my stepmom, Carol, was playing the perfect hostess. Your father misses you. You're not a kid anymore. Stop being so stubborn and come home more. I didn't say anything, didn't even touch my food. Carol didn't act like she was bothered. Liam, you know, it's because her mom passed and she hates me. She's always been a difficult child. She made her dad miserable. I had always been rebellious. Dad had yelled at me when I'd left for college, telling me never to come back. And I didn't. I went off on my own, without family. I thought I would be on my own forever. I met Liam soon after that. I was a brat to him. For 2 years, I was so high and mighty, I never spoke of my family. He thought that I was just a spoiled rich kid. Carol was trying to show Liam the truth. To show him that I had it bad, even though I was so wealthy. I smiled. It's none of your business what I'm like. You're a pathetic stepmother. You're a mistress, and you're even worse. Tiffany looked at Liam, afraid he'd be unimpressed with her family. It's your mom that took my mom's place. What is wrong with you? My dad slammed his glass down. Enough. You don't need to talk like that. They are your family and you need to respect them. What do you think you're doing in front of our guest? I didn't expect him to side with me. I was over trying to be proper. You're the most shameful one here. My dad was about to yell when Liam spoke up. I'm here because of Sarah Jones, the VP of Aurora Media. I don't know why you're making a scene. He was straightforward. My dad didn't look happy, so he changed the subject. So, about this business deal? Liam was having fun with it. Yeah, about that. I don't know how you can keep this going, knowing Sarah is more than capable of this project, and letting your little girl run things into the ground. He took a sip of tea, smiling. I can't help but wonder if you're secretly keeping another girl on the side and letting her ruin your company. Tiffany was quiet, embarrassed. Carol wasn't having it. She said, "What are you getting at, Mr. Miller? You wouldn't happen to have a soft spot for Sarah, would you?" Liam's eyes slowly moved to meet mine. He raised an eyebrow. Maybe. She's really charming. His tone was playful, low, and gentle. It was like being back in college, when he would take my hand when I was cold. Dinner went south and was cut short. I went to the backyard, my head spinning. Liam knew how to play with people. One word and he could make my heart flutter. If he ever wanted to play games with my emotions, no one would beat him. I guess I should thank him for speaking up for me, not that he had been trying to make me feel better. His word, struggling, stuck with me. Was I really struggling? I never even thought about it. I had to prove to my father that I was a success. I had already succeeded, but my eyes started burning. I turned around and saw Liam standing there. The shadows made him look even taller. The autumn light was hitting his profile. He was both beautiful and sad. "Why are you crying?" he asked. Since we met again, this is the first time I felt I should talk to him. But what was there to say? "Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" Liam didn't look at me, taking out a cigarette. "Why would I? I didn't see you trying to talk to me." He was talking about the dinner when we met again. He could hold a grudge for a long time. Back in the day, we would just do what we wanted, without thinking of the consequences. I didn't care how his life was being affected by my actions. I read so many love stories, I thought that my life should be that romantic, too. Before Valentine's Day, Liam asked me what I wanted. I said, jokingly, that I wanted a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Liam gave me a look and said, "You're an idiot." But then on Valentine's Day, he gave me a gold pendant. He had just gotten off work and looked tired. He was serious as he put it on me. "I don't know what you mean by a once-in-a-lifetime moment, but at least this thing keeps its value." I was a practical person. Love was okay, but I never thought I would have a future with broke Liam. But in that moment, I wanted to marry him. Back in those days, the internet was buzzing with people posting pics of their boyfriends making lunch for them. People called it pathetic. Others showed off their expensive gifts from older guys, and they were labeled gold diggers. It seemed like whatever you did, the broke and bitter ones were always going to have something to say. They wanted everyone else to be as miserable as they were. It seemed like nobody understood that what made your life perfect was whatever made you happy. Of course, all of that didn't change that our breakup had been awful and silent. Liam looked at me. "If we break up, that's it. You need to be sure." My eyes got red, and I ripped off the necklace, throwing it at him. I said everything terrible that I could think of. "If anyone wants to come back, that person is a dog." Liam laughed. "Fine." He left, and the necklace was left on the ground, getting dirty. That was the end of our 2 years together. Meeting again, I knew that everything I thought I had forgotten was still there like a nail in my heart. It needed to be healed. I sighed. "Got a spare?" Liam hesitated, then gave me one. He helped me light it, his veins popping out on his hands. He looked rugged and like a real man. I didn't take a drag right away, as the smoke got in my eyes. When the nicotine went to my lungs, I started coughing. I was about to take another drag when Liam took it. "Don't if you don't know how," he said. The cigarette was still lit, so he brought it to his lips and took a long drag. He looked handsome and regal. "Then, Liam," I said. "Yeah," he answered. I used to like calling his name. Even if he was busy, he would always respond. "I really liked you back then." Liam stopped. He looked at me, his eyes unreadable. "Maybe you don't want to think about it, but that was the most carefree time of my life. I liked you so much that I couldn't stand anything about you that was wrong. When you said that you didn't mind anyone trying to steal me away, I thought about leaving without saying anything. But then I thought, did those words matter? I can't make you like me. I understand now. I should say sorry." Liam didn't say anything. He was quiet, so I kept going. "Sorry for bothering you for so long. Sorry for not caring about your dignity. I forced you to be with me. I was immature back then. I thought that love could win. After so long, love has changed. It's not about begging or being reckless. So, let's just move on. Let's put this behind us, and not let it affect our careers. There's no use fighting. We can all make money from this." The smell of the cigarette was strong. He looked at me like I was just some character in a story. "The last sentence is what you really meant, right?" He laughed and put out his cigarette. Then he looked at me, his eyes heavy and bored. "Sarah, even if I didn't say those words, wouldn't you have broken up with me? You hated that I had nothing. I can't blame you. But what you just said made you seem so pure. There's no one less responsible than you." I was frozen. People change as they get older. When I heard those words, I made up my mind. "I don't know what you're trying to do. Are we going to try to settle all of this right now?" Liam didn't say anything. I waited so long that I wanted to leave. Then he said, his voice weak, "It was because I was ashamed." He knew that she would never want to be with him, and that he wasn't good enough for her. So he tried to act like he didn't care, to hold on to the last bit of his pride. When I left, Liam was gone. I had no idea what that confusing thing he said was. It didn't matter anymore. I had said what I had to, and now there was no turning back. As I passed the door, I ripped down the charm again. The next day, my boss was back from his trip with good news. Liam's production company's big-budget movie, The Scout, was looking for a new marketing team because the first one's draft had been unacceptable. I realized that I had looked at him wrong. He hadn't rejected our first plan because he was trying to be mean. I poured a coffee and took it to my boss. "Why aren't you resting?" He waved his hand. "Guess what I heard on my trip?" "What's that?" "They are calling it The Scout because Liam's company is just a part of its distribution, not actually putting too much money into it. The release is set for next October. But the all-star cast spy movie is delayed. You get what I'm saying?" I sat still for a long time, then called Steve. The all-star spy film would be a huge box office success, even if it was released without marketing. If they were to come out at the same time, all the people putting everything into The Scout would lose all their money. The Scout is going to be the next big thing, I told him. The marketing budget is huge. This is private info, so don't say anything. I want Tiffany to hear it from you, saying Liam was the one who told you. Maybe it was a little messed up. Life was hard, and I was doing what I had to do. Steve yawned. Your sister already knows, it's just about how much money to put in. I laughed. She'll be in a rush to prove herself. She was just like me. She was full of arrogance and empty inside. My dad was going to start doubting her, so she was going to do everything she could to prove herself. Both of the movies were going to come out at the same time. The film industry always needed someone to be hated. Liam was a smart guy, and he wouldn't miss out on a chance to win. He would get a lot of money out of both films, and wouldn't let one overshadow the other. Steve didn't ask any more questions. There is a party next week. You should come. I had some time off after that, so I said, sounds good. Of course, before that I was still working day and night. One afternoon, I was with my team, working on the second part of the marketing strategy for the Scout. I knew I had messed up the first time. That was why Liam rejected the pitch. I had misjudged the man. There was no way he would show up. He was being careful, so people wouldn't talk about us. He was smart. And, if he was avoiding me, everyone else could gossip about him. The decision came out that evening. Aurora Media was chosen. And then a few minutes later, Liam's team said that the spy film, Red Scarves, also wanted us for marketing. That was the real deal. The team was celebrating, but I couldn't stop thinking. After everyone left, I called Liam. He sounded like he was in a meeting. Am I bothering you? I asked. Say it, I'm listening. I hesitated. Did you do this? He knew what I was talking about. There was a moment of silence, then I heard him getting up and closing the door. Liam said, should I turn down the deal? People are already talking, now people are gonna think that there is something with us. Liam laughed. Some people are born with everything. Why do you make things so complicated? Some wise person once said that true independence is being able to stand on your own, without depending on anyone. But being independent doesn't mean being alone. I held my phone, speechless. It wasn't about ego, it was about business. Thanks, we'll do a good job, I said. Liam answered, my sister reached out to me. What did you tell her? What are you planning to do? He laughed, wow, you know me so well. I knew he was going to release both movies at the same time. Are you trying to go against me? He didn't answer. Did you eat? The conversation suddenly changed. No, where are you? Shanghai. Let's eat together tomorrow. It wasn't too much to ask. I could do it, just to seal this business deal. I have plans for tomorrow. With a girl or a guy? It's none of your concern. It was quiet again. I wanted to hang up. Sarah, he called. Yeah? Do you regret anything? Did I regret breaking up? I tightened my grip on my phone. No, it was just how we were. There's no going back. No point in regret. Liam sounded like he knew that I was going to say that. He said, quietly, Sarah, I'm your dog. I didn't hear him. What? Never mind. Did you curse at me? I was cursing myself, okay? Okay. I did have plans. I had agreed to go to a party with Steve. There were all sorts of people there, some I knew and some I didn't. After a few drinks, people got chatty. Someone teased Steve about the time he had a crush on me in college. But he never got anywhere with me, and we became friends. You don't get it, Steve said. Being friends is better than dating. Someone laughed, that's what you think. You can't say you don't still like her. Steve just laughed and changed the subject. The guy who had just said that sounded familiar, but I couldn't remember where I had heard him. Do you know Liam? The guy took a swig of his beer. Who doesn't know Liam? He was a cool guy. One time, I jokingly said I was going to try and get with you. He said he didn't care, but when I said that I was going to steal you away, he punched me. The man pointed to a scar on his face. See that? That's from him. Anyway, how did you guys break up? When it was over, the cold wind of the parking lot helped clear my mind. Steve was drunk. We went to get his car, so I could take him home. But then he just froze and hugged me. Do you still think about Liam? When are you gonna see me? He sounded pitiful, and I had the feeling that something wasn't right. Stop it, you're drunk. I met you first. Why is it okay for him to go out with you, but not me? I couldn't say anything. Steve let go of me, Then he leaned down. Sarah, why don't I be your side guy? I won't let that jerk find out. That's not gonna happen. The voice was low and mean. Someone grabbed my shoulders. I could feel his warmth close to me, making my heart skip a beat. Because of that, Steve took a step back. Mr. Miller, what's with that? How are you involved with this? He was tightening his grip on my shoulders. I tried to wriggle away. Let me go. Liam ignored me. If you weren't so annoying, I wouldn't have even noticed you. Steve had calmed down in the past few years. But if he was near Liam, he was always looking for trouble. It was like our first encounter, when Liam had a chip on his shoulder, and if it hadn't been for me, they would have fought each other. Now, Steve was drunk, so he reacted slowly. Before he could say anything. Enough. I said softly. Steve, go wait for me in the car. Okay. We were alone. I knew that Liam couldn't be reasoned with, and I wouldn't lower myself to cater to him. Maybe that was why we had broken up. What is wrong with you? Are you going to be like this forever? He didn't look emotional. I'm not. Is it so hard to talk to me? I looked at him. How do you want to talk to me? Steve is my friend, and why are you overreacting? I already said sorry for the past. Do you have to hold on to it? Steve is my friend, I thought, and he was just a silly mistake. Liam's eyes were red from the wind. I was confused for a second. You? Yeah, I do. I was frozen. It didn't seem like something Liam would do. I didn't know if he was trying to get back at me, or if he was being honest. Liam, what do I owe you? After a long pause, 5 years. Liam looked at me. Sarah, you owe me 5 years. And I'm gonna get it back. We looked into each other's eyes, and it was as if I saw the sun rising. He was staring at me as if I was the most important thing in the world. I felt a sour pain in my heart. I didn't say anything, I just left. When I was in the car, I turned the engine on. Steve was asleep, next to me. I knew that he was trying to get a reaction out of me. For him, love was about flirting, having a good time, or moving on to the next girl. I used to be just like him. I was so sure that I didn't need anyone. Love was about having a good time and going your own way when it ended. My dad was an example of that. So when someone grabbed me, I cut off the connection. When someone got to my head, I decided to let go. I admit it, I was sensitive and complicated. I wanted to be the perfect person. But the world was letting me be myself. I had no right to judge my soul. When we broke up, I put a stop to everything that made me feel weak. Maybe it was fear? Fear of what? I didn't know. Everything was quiet, the city lights moving behind me. I rubbed my eyes. I was crying. That week, I couldn't sleep. I kept having flashbacks. One weekend, around 5 years ago, it was Liam's birthday. He didn't mention it, and I found out from my friends. It was winter, and I waited for him to come out of work. As soon as he appeared, I waved. When he saw me, he stopped. Then he frowned and took my hand, putting it in his pocket. Are you crazy? You're going to get cold. I shook my head. Happy birthday, Liam. He was staring at me, his eyes bright, his grip tightening. I didn't have time to get you a gift. He liked looking at me a lot. This is enough. I didn't understand, so he kissed me. It was the first snow of the year. His breath was heavy and intense. I woke up late. The memory was so real. I rubbed my eyes and got ready for work. That evening, I had a networking event. I was going as the representative of Aurora Media. I was early. Some of the partners were already there. They started talking about Liam. He's handsome and successful. Everyone wants a date. You're being shallow. Nobody has everything. I'm not into the whole stay-at-home, get no money from your husband thing. I have to be with someone with money, not some broke loser. Someone cut in, let us single women be. I'm 36, and the men I like are choosing younger girls. And the ones that are interested in me are too young and don't have money. Don't pretend you're perfect, you're only qualified if you get high grades, if you have a good job, and if you're not 35 yet, and don't have any plans in your life. That's so rude, just because I work hard to make my own money? You guys are just like those housewives, and that makes you feel powerful? That's so wrong. You can have your independence while you're dating or married. The discussion was getting intense. I was getting a headache. Finally, the producer said, so, we were talking about Liam. I heard that he has a fiancée. Miss Jones, do you know about that? That was probably a joke. I had been seeing a lot of Liam lately, and he had even come to my dad's house. Everyone was looking at me. I don't know. Really? Steve said that you guys went out in college. I shook my head. That was a mistake. We don't know each other. As soon as I finished, they all looked behind me. Liam was standing at the door. After a long silence, everyone was suddenly chatty. Liam took a seat, right across from me. He looked at me, but didn't mention it. I tried my best to avoid his eyes. I was going through the motions, going around and talking to everyone. As soon as I finished, one of the guys, named John, came up to me. You are incredible. I want to make a toast to Miss Jones. He finished his drink. I didn't want to make a scene, but he was clearly drunk. If I was to speak my mind, it was clear that I'd make the night a little complicated. He didn't stop and kept trying to refill my glass. I tried to move away. You're drunk. If you don't think so, just take a walk with me. I guarantee I can go in a straight line. Some people had gotten lucky, but they never had any respect for anyone else. I was about to lose my patience. I was about to look for an escape route. Leave her alone, she's a young girl, Mr. Jones, Liam said, smiling like it was a joke. John looked embarrassed. Oh, I get it. I just heard that you and Miss Jones went out in college. Is that true? Liam played with his cigarette, looking like he was holding back a smile. It was a long time ago, and she dumped me, he replied casually. Everyone stopped. I was unable to hear anything else. I looked up at him, and we locked eyes. Then, I looked away. Some of my friends tried to talk to me. I did my best to chat with them, but I kept looking at Liam. He was sitting there, puffing on his cigarette, looking like he owned the room. He just kept looking at me. He had always been attractive to women. Combined with that I don't care attitude, he was impossible to resist. The smoke started moving around him, like a halo. Then, his cigarette fell, but he didn't even flinch. I didn't know what to do. Then, he moved his eyes away, finally. He put out the cigarette, got up, and left. The dinner lasted until 10 p.m. I was exhausted, trying to find my ride on my phone. Then, a car stopped in front of me. The window rolled down, and he said, his voice cold, get in. The weather was miserable, a freezing wind moving my hair. 5 years was a long time. Maybe your habits changed. You would be a stranger to people you knew for a long time. But when I saw him, I knew he was mad. It had started raining, beating on the glass. There was silence in the car, and the driver headed toward my house. I was tired, so I drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, the rain was gone. We were in front of a big house. The driver was gone. Liam was leaning against the car, looking up at the dark sky. I had no idea what he was thinking. He looked so lonely. The only thing I could see was the yellow light of the street lamps. I was covered with his jacket. It had a familiar smell. My legs were numb. I got out of the car. Why didn't you wake me up? My head was foggy from the alcohol. I couldn't remember why I had gotten in his car. Liam looked at me. You looked so tired. I was staring at my feet. Are you disgusted with me? My messed up family life, my messed up job was just in front of him, and maybe he was happy with it. Liam laughed. No, I feel sorry for you. You keep everything inside, pretending you're so tough. Does it make you tired? My heart skipped a beat. Liam looked at the sky, his eyes lost. When we were together, you were the one who asked. I thought that it was for fun, because you were rich. You said that I wasn't romantic, and I didn't love you. I had no idea how to love you. I didn't have a dime, but then, when I passed a flower shop, I bought you a bouquet. A lot of people were staring at me on the street, but all I could think about was, I want to make enough money to marry you. I want to be with you forever. The city was lit up, and above us, there was a dark sky. He was talking so softly. I kept staring at the ground, my heart aching. He was still talking. The day after we broke up, I tried to talk to you. I wanted you to tell me if it had all been a game. But Steve said you were going to England in the morning. I still wanted to find you, but I didn't even have enough money for a ticket to England. When I finally got my first big check, I got on a flight, only to realize that that country is huge. So big that I could not find you. He laughed, sadly. Sarah, you could go back to your life. But I couldn't get back home. You owe me 5 years. I just wanted you to go away. I wanted to forget about you. But if you came back, I was going to hurt you. When I did get my revenge, I saw that you were still stubborn and proud. I felt bad for you. You were right, we were young. Let's just let it go. It's time to move on. He stopped talking. I was frozen. What are you trying to say? He looked me in the eyes, sounding unsure. I'm saying that we should just move on. I had been thinking about it too. I could hardly breathe. I looked away, forcing a smile. Yeah, it's better for everyone, Liam. I wish you well. No matter where we were, I knew I wanted to leave. I started to walk away. Then I heard him chuckle. Some people are like an addiction. You can't get rid of them. If he couldn't win, he would just give in. Liam grabbed my wrist, pulling me back. I hit the car, and I could see the blood in his eyes. I can't be happy without you. Because someone said something, you are running away, not even saying that we went out? Let's just move on? Sarah, do you even feel bad about this? Is it so hard to beg me for forgiveness? 5 years. Did you think about me for 1 second during those 5 years? His tone changed. He brushed the tears from my eyes. Stop crying. Yeah, I cried. The pride that I had felt before was now just a broken facade. I wondered if I should have waited. I should have thought about you more. I should have put aside my pride and asked you why you said those things. Liam, I don't want to say that I'm sorry. I just want to say that I do feel guilty. It was very dark. We looked at each other for a long time. Then, he kissed me. The alcohol and my emotions were messing with my head. I tried to push him away, but he kept a tight grip on me. He bit my lip, taking his time, then he let go of my hands. He started moving his hands all over me. I was dizzy with excitement. He kissed me again and again. I saw his desire and my own. We were in a big house, in his bed, and everything smelled of him. I didn't care anymore. I didn't care what happened. Tears were still falling. Liam kissed them away. How have you been? I shook my head, then nodded. And you? He didn't answer, touching my knee, then he moved up to my ear, my cheek, and then to my lips. He whispered, I missed you so much, I'm going crazy. He knew that they were the bad guys, and they were messing with each other. But he had tried everything, and she was still the only one for him. Our skin was wet. The alcohol, the emotions, the heavy breathing, and then, we gave in to it. He showed me a passionate fireworks show. It was like a dream. They say you get what you deserve. Adults need to know how to be responsible. It didn't matter if it was because of our hormones or destiny. Don't play with someone's heart, and don't be a moth to a flame. I would take responsibility for my life. We spent the night together. I woke up once, I saw him standing in front of the window, a small red light in his hand. I was so tired, I could hear the sound of water. Then, I felt his arms around me. My heart was finally calm. I woke up from my phone ringing. I had to go on a work trip. My assistant was waiting at the airport. I carefully moved his hand from my waist, then I looked at him. He looked soft, without the usual cold distance. I reached out and touched his nose. He frowned and said, "Don't do that." His voice was weak and soft. Then he said my name. I froze. I had loved to wake him up when we were in college. He used to say the same thing. My phone was ringing again. I went to get ready without waking him and left. The trip was to some place in the desert. Aurora always sent out teams to the sets. Before I got on the plane, my dad called. He was talking softly. He wanted to borrow money. A few days earlier, Red Scarves had announced its release for October 2. The Scout was already in production, and it would have cost 3 times as much to stop the film now. Tiffany, just as I had predicted, had spent all the money. It was a dumb idea. This wasn't a battle of life or death. Getting those people to go from rich to bankrupt was how I was going to get back at them. Why didn't Tiffany call? My dad sighed. "She is your sister, you should help her." I laughed. "I don't think so." "Oh yeah, I have no money. Go ask my mom. She's just at home, right?" I hung up and blocked them both. There were 7 or 8 of us on this trip. I was still hungover. As soon as the shooting was done, before sunset, my employees were so excited that they had never been to the desert before, so I went with them. I had always had great respect for the desert. I was looking at a small oasis when one of the employees pointed to something on the side of the road. I moved closer. The wooden sign said area, 560 acres. Total number, 25,200 trees. Donations made by Miller Production. The sand was hitting my face, and the tears were welling in my eyes. I had joked to Liam once that if he ever did something unforgivable, he should go and plant trees in the desert. He had asked me if I would forgive him. Planting trees was expensive, so I thought he would never do it. But now he had. One of the employees tugged my coat. "Miss Jones, why are you crying?" I rubbed my eyes, trying to smile. "It's just sand in my eyes." There was no cell reception, so I tried to call him with the satellite phone. "Sarah Jones." His voice was low. I turned around. He was standing there, in the middle of the storm, looking only at me. I couldn't help but move closer. "What are you doing here?" Liam looked at my hands and my face as if to check if I was okay. He was back to his usual self, serious and caring. "I couldn't call you. I thought you ran away again," he said, softly. "I thought you didn't want me. Nobody could share my pain or my happiness." The pain I thought I had overcome came back. I shook my head. "No." Liam took a breath. "You came so far away, are you tired?" It was like a fish bone in my throat. "Yeah, I'm very tired. Liam, I have no home. Can you hold me?" Liam didn't give me time to react. He grabbed my hand and pulled me into his arms. "You have me." Tears were blurring my vision. "Let's start over," I said. No pressure. No fear. We were going to be equal, together. He started breathing into my neck. "Yeah, I like you, Sarah Jones. They say that you will be forever haunted by the things you wanted as a young person. But everything can change, and one thing can help you find your path. They say that all the bad days will get covered with new moments. You want to burn all the bad parts of your youth." But now I was standing on the top of a mountain, in the middle of the storm. I could only hear his heartbeat. The world was so complicated, confusing, and sad. Until I met you. A new beginning. I hope this is a good, localized, and flowing version of the story. Let me know if you need any further tweaks or changes.